I have provided a link to the video I'm using. I've also provided a link to the HDRI I'll be using later in the tutorial. Open the motion tracking workspace. To import the video, simply drag and drop it into the movie clip editor area. Under the Output Properties tab, make sure your frame rate is set to the same rate as the video. In my case, that would be 24 frames per second. Click on the Set Scene Frames button to make sure the timeline is the same length as the video. If you find that your video is playing slowly, you can click on the Prefetch button. This will cache the video first and then play it. Now we can begin adding tracking markers to the video. There must be at least 8 for Blender to properly track. It is best to choose areas of high contrast for a better tracking result. Change the motion model to location, rotation, and scale. This defines what motions the tracking feature will use. Make sure you're on the first frame. To place a tracker, use Ctrl and left click. Pressing the L key will lock the tracker to the view while still allowing you to move the video. Using Ctrl T, you can now track forwards. If the tracking does not end on the last frame, go to the last frame where it tracked. And using Alt-S to bring up the search area, increase the size by holding down the left mouse button and dragging on the triangle in the corner. Then use Ctrl T to begin the tracking. If you know your sensor width, you can place that value under the Track tab in the camera panel. If you know your focal length, you can put that value in under the Lens panel. Otherwise, you can check the Refine Focal Length under the Solve tab. For the keyframe A and keyframe B, select either the entire video sequence or where the video has the greatest parallax. For me, I'll just use the frame totals. Once you have everything set up, click on Solve Camera Motion. In the upper right, you'll see the solve error. This should be kept to less than 1. Since my solve rate is above 1, I'll add more trackers. In order to now bring the tracking to the camera in the 3D scene, click on Set Up Tracking Scene. In the camera perspective view, you can now see a plane and a cube that has been added to the scene. If you scrub through the timeline and look at the camera view, you'll see the camera moving. You'll also notice 2 collections in the outliner, foreground and background. Now, if the cube is not in the foreground collection, you'll need to move it to that collection. As of right now, our plane and cube do not stick to the ground of the video. Back in the 3D viewport, if you turn on motion tracking under the overlays, you notice that the tracking points are not aligned to the 3D objects. To fix this issue, select 3 motion tracking points that are on the ground. In the orientation panel, click on Floor. In the 3D viewport, notice that the trackers are now more in line with the 3D objects. In wireframe mode, you can see that these selected trackers are on the ground. I don't want to use the cube as my 3D object, so I'll add a UV sphere and shade it smooth. Placing it on top of the plane. If you notice your camera is upside down, you can select everything and rotate them 180 degrees. And make any adjustments to the objects as necessary. Make sure you're using the Cycles render engine. Under the film panel, activate the transparent option. If you go into rendered mode, notice that you can't see the plane. This is because it's only being used as a shadow catcher. I have a quick tip video explaining this. The link is in the description. If you select the background layer, you'll be able to see the shadows. For the lighting, delete any light since we will be using an HDRI. Open the shader editor and go into the world shader. Delete the background node. And drag and drop the HDRI image into the shader editor and connect it to the world output. Back under the object material, select the sphere and add a simple rough material. Under the Layers Property tab, turn on the Denoising Data option in the Passes panel. Lower the samples under the Render Properties tab. Render an image to make sure everything is working properly. The object will render, then the shadow, then the video. Under the Output Properties tab in the Output panel, select your file format and encoding option. And the file where you want everything to save to. And finally, render your animation.